Fauci's emails have been released through a Freedom of Information Act request. Thousands, 3,000 or so emails from Dr. Anthony Fauci are out, and many of them are actually damning. One of the most shocking is that early on, many researchers were concerned that COVID was bioengineered and was inconsistent with their expectations of evolutionary theory. So saith the emails that came out. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. Many people have countered saying it was from the emergence of COVID. It's been a year and a half. We've done better research. But it was, I believe, one of the higher ups at EcoHealth Alliance and some individuals in China who thanked Fauci for dismissing lab leak theory. EcoHealth Alliance was involved in the investigation of the Wuhan lab. So I think it's fair to say now that lab leak has become a prominent theory, we relook at that evidence, especially now as these emails are released. But there's some serious problems here. Joe Biden asked for a probe into COVID. I don't think it was actually a good move. So what we know is the State Department already had an investigation into the Wuhan lab, into lab leaks started by Donald Trump under Mike Pompeo. And Joe Biden ended that and shifted the investigation to the intelligence community, which I guess Trump didn't trust. So Joe Biden said, we'll do a probe. Whether or not it's actually going to be substantive or what this means, we don't know for sure. But I can tell you this. Chinese state media says the country must prepare for nuclear war with the U.S. after Biden asks for COVID probe. You know what the fourth turning is? The fourth turning, the Strauss-Howe generational theory. 80 years ago, we had World War II. 80 years before that, we had the Civil War. And 80 years before that, we had the American Revolutionary War. So, yeah, the theory states that we are about to enter a major war period. Maybe. Maybe we're in it. Maybe you've already seen it. And now China's saying if you push the COVID issue, we are going to build nuclear bombs to send shivers down your spine should you dare oppose us. It's Thucydides' trap, my friends. China is a rising power. They are gaining economic. They're going to eventually become the economic superpower, and they will displace the United States as the dominant economic power. And Thucydides' trap says that when that happens, war breaks out. China now, it seems, may be responsible, and Fauci, of course, as well as these other companies, for COVID. That's a lot of people who died, millions who died. And it rests on the shoulders of those who funded the gain of function research, which ultimately may, according to media today, have resulted in this widespread death. So it's going to get bad. But here's all I can do for you right now. We have a lot to go through. Anthony Fauci's emails have been leaked. Fauci is saying that he's going to be working with China. China's thanking Fauci. And maybe it makes sense. Maybe we want to avoid nuclear war at all cost. But at what cost? At what cost? So if China is going to become a nuclear power, if they're going to become the dominant nuclear power, do we sit back and just accept their authoritarian communist party rule over the planet? Or do we reject that and say, no, what do you do? The fact that Chinese state media is saying they should start building more and more nuclear weapons and get prepared for nuclear war shows the very serious problem of neither side being willing to back down. I mean, of course, the individuals in China believe that their way of life is the correct way of life and that everyone else should live the way they want. In the United States, we're not going to give up our freedom. We're going to reject that. And that means neither side will back down, and it is mutually assured destruction. I suppose at that point, the only thing we can hope for is that aliens come back like the conspiracy theory says. Or it's not really a conspiracy theory. It's weird how that word became a catch-all for like strange ideas. But there's the old story about the aliens turning off our nuclear bombs. Yeah, maybe. All right, we got a lot to read through, man. Here's Newsweek. They say, Hu Xijin, the editor of the Chinese state-run newspaper, The Global Times, considers enhancing China's nuclear program as being vital to the country's strategic deterrence against the U.S. Protests in Hong Kong, Taiwan, the COVID-19 pandemic, and accusations China's engaged in genocide against the Uyghur Muslims are showing deeper divisions in an already strained relationship between China and the U.S., with Beijing one of America's top concerns. President Joe Biden has sought to strike a stern tone, while China sees much of America's actions and comments to be an encroachment on its sovereignty. The increasingly confrontational rhetoric and military maneuvers coming out of the two countries have raised concerns about a potential war. Quote, "We must be prepared for an intense showdown between China and the U.S., who wrote in a Thursday op-ed for the Global Times. The number of China's nuclear warheads must reach the quantity that makes U.S. elites shiver should they entertain the idea of engaging in a military confrontation with China, who advocated for rapidly increasing the number of commissioned nuclear warheads, DF-41s, and intercontinental ballistic missile, and strategic missiles that have long-range capabilities." The editor posted the same comments on Weibo, a Chinese social media platform. China and the United States have been sparring over a range of issues, including the COVID-19 pandemic, whose op-ed came one day after Biden announced he instructed the intelligence community to double down on their efforts to identify the COVID-19 origin, including coming up with a list of questions that China has to answer. The intelligence community hasn't ruled out the possibility that COVID-19 originated in a laboratory, a notion that China vehemently dismissed as being politically motivated and anti-science. Officials have also attempted to shift the blame to the U.S., Fort Detrick, citing no evidence, and accused Biden of stoking confrontation and sowing division with the intelligence investigation. Before Biden drew China's ire for his push for an investigation into the origin of the coronavirus, tensions mounted over an American warship sailing through the Taiwan Strait. The American military maintained the ship's transit was in line with international order and demonstrated the U.S. commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific. China, however, saw it as a threat to its control over Taiwan and accused the U.S. of endangering peace and stability. In his op-ed, who wrote that building up China's nuclear arsenal is important because America's strategic containment of China is becoming increasingly intensified. Having that military buildup is a cornerstone of China's strategic deterrence against the U.S., according to who? Now, it's just one guy in Chinese state media, but seemingly fairly prominent and should be worrying considering what we're learning now. Let's walk through some of these stories. We have a lot to break down. June 2nd, Wuhan lab leak theories revival risks making U.S.-China relations worse. That's right. I mean, I think we just saw it, the story coming out today, just this morning. Yeah, I think when a Chinese state media personality says we need more nuclear warheads, missiles, ICBMs over Joe Biden talk about COVID, yeah, Bloomberg, I think we get it. Lab leak theory is dangerous. And maybe that's why they lied about it. Maybe that's why they tried claiming it was nothing but a crackpot conspiracy. I mean, maybe it's noble. We don't want nuclear war. Do you really want to blow the planet up? No, but think about that. China is working on gain-of-function research. That's true. And several people at the lab, the Wuhan lab, get sick. That's true, according to the Wall Street Journal. And then across the street is a wet market where they claim that's where it really came from. We don't know if that's true. We don't know if it actually came from the lab, but it's looking more and more like it was the lab. And it's looking like, based on new emails that have been released, we knew it was likely the lab the whole time. Now, the New York Times, media groupthink and lab leak theory. This is just a story. I'm not going to go through it, but they point out how people just in the media immediately dismissed lab leak theory. Why? Orange man bad. Donald Trump said it. It must be fake news. And now people are like, maybe we should have actually done our jobs. I'm sorry. Journalism doesn't exist in this country. Well, okay. That's not fair. The lefties who don't like me, and it's like most of the establishment Democrat types, they don't like me because I actually do journalism. Oh, that's right. And they say Tim's not doing journalism, but then what? When they write an article about Brad Pitt and like his new relationship, that's journalism? Sorry, dude. I may be pulling up a bunch of articles, but I'm fact checking them. Yes, journalism. I'm also looking up videos and source material and making sure that the articles I'm reading, for the most part, to the best of my abilities, are true and correct. So I'll look at the source material. Often it is commentary, but I do a lot more journalism than those people the New York Times tend to do. There are good people at the New York Times, don't get me wrong. I think the organization is trash for the most part, but there are people who actually try and do reporting. These emails that are coming out, believe it or not, they came from BuzzFeed. So that's fantastic. I think BuzzFeed is trash, but at least they published these emails. Check this out. So I mentioned this one. Now we see where we're going. Fauci agreed to work together with Chinese official on the coronavirus pandemic in 2020. New emails show. That makes sense. I mean, Fauci had already been working with China, providing funding to the EcoHealth Alliance, which was then used by the Wuhan lab for gain of function research, which is when they make viruses more deadly. The idea being that we can then be better prepared if a virus like that actually emerges in the wild. Okay, well, here we go, baby. From BuzzFeed, Anthony Fauci's emails reveal the pressure that fell on one man. Thousands of pages of communications obtained by BuzzFeed News show how Fauci tried to keep Americans calm and develop an effective strategy despite conflicts with the Trump administration. Oh, Anthony Fauci, such a good man, BuzzFeed. Thank you for this headline. It's amazing. Why BuzzFeed gets access to all of these emails, thousands upon thousands. Let me go down and show you the script. They got all the documents here, I'm pretty sure. So I'm scrolling down. Here we go. All right, we got, this is Jason Leopold, NIH FOIA Anthony Fauci's emails, 3,234. And out of everything they released, they decide to frame it as the pressure that fell on one man trying to develop a strategy and fight with the evil orange man. That's amazing work, guys. I mean, no, seriously, getting those emails out's fantastic. But I have to question your choices in framing. Let me show you one of the emails that's going viral. This is page 3,187. February 1st, 2020. Anthony Fauci. Thanks, Christian. Talk soon. In response to another email from Christian G. Anderson, who writes, Hi, Tony. Thanks for sharing. So let me slow down. They're sharing a story about the origins of the coronavirus. Hi, Tony. Thanks for sharing. Yes, I saw this earlier today, and both Eddie and myself are actually quoted in it. It's a great article. But the problem is that our phylogenetic analysis aren't able to answer whether sequences are unusual at individual residues, except if they are completely off. On a phylogenetic tree, the virus looks totally normal, and the close clustering with bats suggest that the bats serve as the reservoir. The unusual features of the virus make up a really small part of the genome, less than 0.1%. So one has to look really closely at the sequences to see that some of the features potentially look engineered. You ready for the next line? Here we go. Quote, we have a good team lined up to look very critically at this, so we should know much more at the end of the weekend. I should mention that after discussions earlier today, Eddie, Bob, Mike, and myself all find the genome inconsistent with expectations from evolutionary theory. But we have to look at this much more closely, and there are still further analyses to be done. So those opinions could still change. Best, Christian. They could change. Okay. And that's fine. This is an early email. It's from January 31st, 2020. Could it be that they looked at it, said, wow, that looks engineered, went through it and said, you know what? We don't think so. Yes, absolutely. That seems to be the case. However, it also shows that early on, lab leak was a very real possibility. And all they really had were the personal opinions of some of these experts whose personal opinions early on was lab leak theory. What do we get instead? I think out of fear of potential conflict, they don't put that in the press. Let's just be real, guys. Let's just be real. I mentioned this the past few days, Gulf of Tonkin incident, the incident that got us involved in Vietnam. How much did we know about it at the time? Very little. Turns out it may have been completely fabricated. History is disputed, but for the most part, it seems that never happened. An American ship was attacked. We had to enter the Vietnam War. Probably never happened. When you think about war and conflict, the media doesn't just tell you what's happening. We used to have an office of censorship in this country whose motto was silence accelerates victory. And you remember the posters, loose lips sink ships. They would tell people, don't talk about the war effort. Don't talk about what's going on. So if there really was something happening, do you think they're going to come out in the media and be like, oh, by the way, our researchers actually think it's engineered? Nope. It's not going to happen. Does this mean lab leak theory is true? No. But it's becoming more and more plausible. The media is now absolutely entertaining this. And I have to wonder, why the hard 180 on lab leak theory that COVID emerged from this lab? Well, Anthony Fauci himself has come out now and said he is not convinced the virus emerged naturally. Interestingly, Fauci knew this January 31st, 2020. So if you want to come to me and say that Anthony Fauci heard that and then changed his mind and is now changing it back, fine. The guy's a moron. But I'll tell you what I think is very much more. Here's the problem. From Taiwan News, WHO inspector has conflict of interest in Wuhan COVID probe. Richard Ebright says Peter Daszak has conflict of interest in WHO and Lancet investigations of Wuhan outbreak. Why, that's right. Peter Daszak is a British zoologist and president of EcoHealth Alliance. Peter Daszak is the only individual to be part of both the WHO and the Lancet teams investigating the origins of the Wuhan COVID pandemic. However, he has long-term professional and financial ties with the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which represents a conflict of interest. That's absolutely true. In a letter written to, so this is a letter from Republicans, House Committee on Oversight and Reform, ranking member James Comer, House Committee, blah, 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 you get the point. Writing to, send a letter to Francis Collins, director of the NIH, and Anthony Fauci. Quote, EcoHealth has awarded almost $600,000 to the Wuhan Institute of Virology and another $200,000 to the Wuhan University School of Public Health. The letter reads, on July 8th, 2020, NIH Deputy Director for Extramural Research, Dr. Michael Lauer, sent a letter to EcoHealth expressing concern over its relationship with the WIV and suspended EcoHealth's grant pending answers to several routine questions. The questions posed by Dr. Lauer raise serious concerns and suggest COVID-19 was spreading worldwide by October 19th. Despite U.S. intelligence concerns about the ability of the Wuhan lab to properly contain the deadly disease, including the virus that causes COVID-19 that they study, EcoHealth still awarded U.S. taxpayer grant funds to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. In the emails, I don't know if I have it pulled up, but in the emails, Anthony Fauci is thanked by individuals for dismissing lab leak theory. Could it be that Anthony Fauci only dismissed it because he actually provided funding for it? Not intentionally, so he says. Maybe he's lying now. I don't know. The guy seems to be pretty dumb. Fauci provided money that went to EcoHealth Alliance, which was then used for gain-of-function research in Wuhan. Fauci lied. When Rand Paul was questioning him during a congressional hearing, Fauci said, we have not provided funding for gain-of-function research. Oh, technically the truth, he says. They provided funding that went to gain-of-function research. Let's make sure that's clear. Rand Paul, I believe, accused him of perjury. So let's get him under oath now. So here's what you need to understand. Anthony Fauci provided funding to EcoHealth Alliance. The money was used by Wuhan for gain-of-function research. On January 31st, Fauci was informed it may be an engineered virus. If that's true, certainly Fauci would be sweating bullets. Why? If the genome looked engineered, and these experts who emailed Fauci said it doesn't fall in line with our expectations of evolutionary theory, Fauci was the one who gave money to EcoHealth Alliance. Whose fault is it going to be when a virus escapes from a lab? How amazing is that? Donald Trump is a moron for letting Fauci continue doing what he was doing. You know, I can't necessarily blame Trump, I suppose. He didn't know enough about this, so a blind spot, I'm sure. But he should have fired Fauci immediately. He didn't do it. People love Fauci. It's great. You know, they trust him. It's good to have someone on the team that people like in the media. Well, Donald Trump should have gotten rid of him right away. The fox was in the henhouse. Fauci was, in my opinion, giving bad advice because he's implicated in this. Not because he intentionally tried to cause harm, but because the chain goes back to him. He made decisions. There's an op-ed that's going around right now. Apparently, Fauci wrote, 10 or so years ago, he wrote an op-ed where he said, even if a virus breaks out, it is worth it that we do this research, even if it causes serious problems. Well, he got his wish. I do want to point out one thing. A lot of people are mentioning an email from Fauci where he says, masks stop people from infecting each other. They don't stop you from getting infected. And they say Fauci lied. I think you're wrong. I've been tracking this. Anthony Fauci very early on had said, wearing a mask stops someone who's infected spreading the infection. It doesn't protect you who's not infected from getting infected. He said it might stop a droplet from getting in your mouth or whatever. And I make that joke all the time. Early on, Fauci said, don't wear masks. you don't need it. The real issue was if he said people who are sick should be wearing masks, we would have spread COVID less. But he told people not to. Why? Well, he said it in July of last year that we needed the masks for our medical professionals because he's an idiot. So here we go. How soon until we get confirmation of lab leak theory? I don't know. Maybe we won't. Maybe it's not true. But I can tell you, in those emails, we get another story from this time the Washington Post publishes Anthony Fauci's pandemic emails. Quote, all is well despite some crazy people in this world. Crazy people in this world. Crazy people saying it may have emerged from a lab. Crazy people saying it looks potentially engineered. Those crazy people. No, I get it. There are crazy people for sure. But man, Fauci is not one to talk. Oh, in the end, I just hope none of this leads to nuclear war. So, yeah, there we go. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.